Okay, so picture this. You're at Costco, right? You're loading up on all those bulk buys, maybe grabbing a couple of those free samples and just kind of enjoying that whole Costco experience.
Yeah.
But behind all those like bulk-sized bargains, there's this pretty serious labor showdown that's brewing, and it could actually impact like your next trip to Costco.
Oh, for sure.
So we're going to do a deep dive today into the potential Costco strike. We're talking about union power and corporate profits and, the workers that are kind of caught in the middle.
Yeah, this is a big one, and it's interesting because the timing is, we're just a couple days away from that January 31st contract expiration.
Right.
And we've got over 18,000 Costco workers that are represented by the Teamsters Union, and they just voted overwhelmingly to authorize a strike.
Yeah, and I saw that number. It was like a whopping 85% voted in favor of this. So that's a pretty clear sign that something is definitely going on here. But before we kind of jump to conclusions, can you just give us a little breakdown of what a strike authorization actually means? Because does this mean we're going to see picket lines tomorrow?
That's a great question, and it's not quite that simple.
Sure.
It's really more of a strategic move. It gives the Teamsters the ability to call a strike if those negotiations just totally fall apart. So think of it like a really strong bargaining chip.
Okay, yeah.
They're essentially showing Costco like, hey, we're serious and we're ready to walk if you don't meet our demands.
Yeah, and they haven't exactly been quiet about, expressing their dissatisfaction.
Right.
The Teamsters General President, Shan had some pretty strong words for Costco.
Uh-huh.
He actually said, Costco's greedy executives have less than 2 weeks to do the right thing. If they refuse, they'll have no one to blame but themselves when our members go on strike.
Mm.
It sounds like they're really laying down the law here.
Yeah, that's some pretty tough talk. And it's definitely meant to, turn up the pressure, project strength, and, maybe even sway some public opinion.
Yeah.
But it does raise a pretty key question. Are they bluffing, or are they actually prepared for the potential financial hit that a strike could bring?
Yeah, because that's a big deal, right? And they've already been organizing these practice pickets. I mean, all across the country, we've seen them from California to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't just like casual gatherings, right?
No, definitely not. These practice pickets are strategic. There's a way to, show force, demonstrate unity, and just get everyone, prepared in case that strike actually happens.
Yeah.
And of course, it sends a message to Costco, about just how disruptive things could get.
Yeah, and speaking of disruptive, let's talk about some numbers here, because Costco is a retail powerhouse.
Huge.
I mean, they're pulling in $254 billion in annual revenue.
Wow.
And they have a net profit of $7.4 billion. That's a 135% increase since 2018. So clearly they're doing well financially.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the tension is coming from, right? The Teamsters are arguing that the workers are the backbone of this success. I mean, they're the ones driving those profits.
Yeah.
And they deserve a bigger piece of the pie. So it really highlights that, classic push and pull between labor and capital.
Right.
Workers want fair compensation, but corporations want to maximize their profits.
And it's interesting because one Costco worker and Teamsters member, Brian Fields, actually said this. He said, "We are the backbone of Costco. We drive its success and generate its profits. We hope the company will step up and do right by us. But if they don't, that's on them. The company will be striking itself."
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, it is.
I think it really reflects a sentiment that we're seeing more and more these days. Workers are realizing their collective power, and they're demanding that their contributions are recognized and that they're compensated fairly, especially, when companies are posting these record profits.
Yeah, especially when they're making that much money, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And, in the end, it really comes down to leverage. The Teamsters are betting that the potential disruption of a strike, especially, during a busy shopping season, is really going to push Costco to meet their demands.
So what are those demands like? What are the Teamsters actually hoping to achieve here?
Well, the specifics of their proposals haven't actually been made public yet.
Okay.
But we can look at kind of the broader trends in union negotiations to get an idea.
Yeah.
Key issues often include things like wages, healthcare benefits, scheduling practices, and worker safety. So these are all areas where Costco workers might be looking for some improvement.
And how could a strike actually impact Costco's operations and ultimately their bottom line? I mean, could we see empty shelves and frustrated shoppers?
Oh, It's definitely possible. Costco operates on this really tight supply chain, and a strike could totally disrupt the flow of goods from those warehouses to the stores. So you could see shortages of certain products, longer checkout lines, maybe even some temporary store closures, and the financial impact would really depend on how long the strike lasts and Costco's ability to kind of, mitigate those disruptions.
It seems like Costco has really tried to build a reputation for being a good employer. They offer competitive wages and benefits, so wouldn't a strike potentially damage that image?
Absolutely. A prolonged strike, especially one that's seen as being driven by corporate greed rather than, genuine concern for workers, could really tarnish Costco's reputation.
Yeah.
Consumers are way more aware of labor practices these days, and a strike could lead some shoppers to just, look for alternatives.
This whole situation reminds me that we're seeing a resurgence of this kind of labor activism all across the country. I mean, it's not just Costco. We're seeing workers in all kinds of industries demanding better pay, better working conditions, and more of a say in their workplaces.
That's a great point. There's definitely a shift happening in the labor landscape.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic, with all of the disruptions and economic anxieties, it really kind of emboldened a lot of workers to stand up for their rights. They're recognizing their collective power and exploring those options, like unionization strikes and other forms of collective action.
It feels like this Costco standoff is like a microcosm of this larger trend, this clash between the old ways of doing business and the demands of a workforce that's just not willing to accept the status quo anymore.
Exactly. And the outcome of this whole battle could have ripple effects throughout the entire retail industry and beyond.
Yeah.
If the Teamsters are able to secure significant concessions from Costco, it could inspire workers and other companies to make those same demands.
Right.
But on the other hand, if Costco resists the union's pressure, it could send a signal to other corporations that it's okay to take a hard line against labor.
So what does all this mean for us, the average Costco shopper? Should we be boycotting Costco, writing letters to the CEO, or, joining the picket lines? What do we do?
That's a really complex question. Ultimately, it's up to each individual to decide how they want to engage with this issue.
Right.
Some people might choose to show their solidarity with the workers by supporting the strike or shopping somewhere else.
Yeah.
Others might just, prefer to wait and see how things play out.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that our choices as consumers do have an impact. Even if it's indirect, the way we spend our money can really send a message to corporations about what we value.
I completely agree. Every purchase is kind of like a vote for the kind of world we want to live in.
Yeah.
Do we support those companies that prioritize worker well-being and fair labor practices?
Right.
Or do we just go for convenience and low prices, even if it means potentially sacrificing worker dignity?
And it's not just about our individual choices either, right? Like, we can also engage in broader conversations about the role of labor unions, the balance of power between corporations and workers, and the kind of economic system we want to create.
Those are really crucial conversations to be having. It's important to move beyond these, simplistic narratives of pro-union versus anti-union and really dig into the complexities of these issues, like, what are the legitimate concerns of both workers and employers?
Right.
How can we create a system that's fair to workers, but also, encourages economic growth and innovation?
Yeah, those are tough questions, but they're ones that we really need to be grappling with as a society. This Costco standoffs, I think, really highlights the challenges and the opportunities that we face in this, evolving landscape of labor relations in the 21st century.
And it highlights the importance of being informed and engaged citizens. We can't afford to just sit back and passively observe these debates.
Right.
We need to understand the issues, consider different perspectives, and make our voices heard, whether it's through our purchasing decisions or political engagement or even just our everyday conversations.
What strikes me about all this is the human element. We often talk about these issues in these kind of abstract terms, profits, contracts, strikes. But behind all of that are real people with real lives.
You're so right. It's easy to get lost in the numbers and the jargon, but we can't forget that we're talking about human beings, the workers at Costco, the executives making the decisions, the consumers weighing their options. We're all connected, and our choices impact each other.
Yeah, this deep dive has really highlighted how complex the situation at Costco is and, the broader implications for labor relations. It's clear that there are no easy answers, but there are definitely important questions to ask and, difficult choices to be made.
And that's exactly the point of these deep dives, right?
Right.
To encourage critical thinking, spark thoughtful conversations, and equip you with the knowledge and insights that you need to navigate this complex world around us.
So with the clock ticking and the stakes so high, what are some potential scenarios that could unfold in the coming days?
Well, the ideal scenario is that they reach a negotiated agreement before that contract expires. That would require both sides to make some concessions and find some common ground.
Right.
But negotiations can be really unpredictable, and things don't always go according to plan.
Right. And if they can't reach an agreement, then what happens?
Well, if those negotiations fail, the Teamsters could call for a strike, and that means workers walk off the job. They could potentially shut down those Costco warehouses and disrupt the entire flow of goods. It would be a major escalation and could have a pretty significant financial impact on both sides.
Yeah.
Not to mention the potential hit to Costco's reputation.
So is a strike like the worst case scenario? Are there any other possibilities? Something between a smooth resolution and a full-blown strike?
Well, there's always room for compromise. Maybe they agree to a temporary extension of the current contract while they keep negotiating. Or maybe they bring in a mediator, someone to kind of help bridge the gap between their positions.
Okay.
It's a really fluid situation with a lot of different variables at play.
So it sounds like the next few days are going to be crucial in determining, which path this whole conflict takes.
Exactly. And it's not just about Costco. This situation reflects those larger trends in labor relations we talked about.
Right.
With workers across industries demanding more from their employers, the outcome of this standoff could have ripple effects on other businesses and workers all over the country.
Yeah, this deep dive has really been eye-opening. It's made me think about the power dynamics between workers and corporations, the role of unions, and just the impact of these labor disputes on all of us as consumers.
And that's what I was hoping you'd take away from this. It wasn't just about this one company or one union. It was about understanding how complex labor relations are in today's world and recognizing that these issues have far-reaching consequences for everyone.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about. So as we wrap up, what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
Stay informed and engaged. Pay attention to what's happening with labor, not just at Costco, but in other industries too. These issues are becoming more and more important as the nature of work keeps evolving. And remember, we all have a role to play in shaping the future of work, whether it's through our purchasing choices, our political engagement, or even just by having informed conversations about these important topics.
That's great advice. Thanks for joining us today. And keep those minds curious.